But welcome. Appreciate everyone joining today. My name is Rod Lacey. I am a fractional HR professional. I run Sunstone HR with a team of great professional consultants. And this is a little training we put together today for about turnover and some things I think that we might miss if we're kind of even if we're watching some market indicators. But we do this the first Monday of every month, and we will rotate the presenter so it's something fresh. These are designed to be a little bit interactive. And so I would invite if someone needs to come off mute, ask a question, seek clarification, please do so. We plan these so that their time is flexible. And so again, the goal here is to share knowledge, insights, not just to just talk at you and share, just drive a message home. Just share insights, give you a feel for what's going on in the market. But our upcoming sessions, we've got Julie in January, coaching tips and best practices, learning to call the play. And then Stephanie in February, how to have tough conversations like a pro. Again, these are designed to be practical applications for anyone in a management space, anyone in an HR space. Really, it fits anyone in the business world. So thanks for joining today, and we'll make this available on video afterwards as well. So the topic that I chose to present on is why our employees are leaving. Why are they really leaving, and what you can do about it. The timing of this topic is probably interesting, as you'll see, because chances are that your turnover is a little lower than normal right now, but it's still even more important that we talk about it, even if you might not be prompted to worry about it. So this is what you can do about employee exits. And so we're going to talk about the actual true volatility of today's workforce. Then we're going to break down voluntary turnover. I'm going to share with you what I call my bad day theory. And then we'll talk about some proactive strategies to prevent turnover, to get ahead of the game. And so, again, this is the general outline. But if you know me, you know that I'm a numbers nerd. I like to sell ideas with data. And so you need to tolerate some of my statistics here for a minute. So even though your workplace probably feels calm, regulated, not a lot of people moving, shuffling, Gallup reports that 51% of employees are watching or actively seeking a new job. Over half your employees are looking for work to some degree. As concerning as that is only one in three employees is engaged. Now, the younger employees have seen bigger drops than that. Certain careers, professions have seen bigger drops. But if you look at the engagement trend, and I want to try to connect some dots for us here. If you look at when engagement peaked, it was right at the beginning of the pandemic. If you look at the grid there, why is that? Was it because we all loved our employers so much more? No. It's because unemployment was extremely high. Layoffs, there were 2 million layoffs in the early pandemic phases. We were grateful to have a job. And so market conditions get some credit for driving these engagement statistics. So even though we're running a little bit higher than normal, we can't take full credit because there are market conditions that are driving some of that employee engagement. So, although the HR people would love to pat themselves on the back and say, I drove employee engagement, we're at an all-time high. I hope you did. I hope that we did drive some of that engagement, but chances are there are other factors in play. And it's important that you look at the other factors because if you take full credit and are not aware of what's really going on, you'll be caught blindsided when the market conditions shift. So again, it might be easy to look at your numbers and say nobody's leaving. Everyone's staying in the places. I mean, as we approach year end, no one wants to get, change jobs or upset the apple cart. So you could say, yeah, voluntary turnover has been pretty flat since the Great Resignation. Again, that was a point where employees had all the authority, all the power. They could walk. We were desperate on the employer side. It shifted dramatically today. It is an employer's market. So as you think of the housing market, there's a buyer's market, a seller's market. The Great Resignation, it was the employee's market. Anyone could go anywhere they wanted, command more pay. and employers had to shrug their shoulders. No one dares change right now because they're grateful for a job, which means engagement is going up because unemployment is going up. So again, I'm trying to paint a clear picture about all of the indicators that are playing on what's happening in your workplace. So engagement statistics are pretty consistent. Your voluntary turnover is pretty flat. Things, seem pretty calm. It's not time to be calm necessarily. Again, because there are other factors going on there that are holding your people in their seats. There's a term that's emerging, and some of these terms stick, like the Great Resignation sticks, but they're starting to talk about the Great Freeze, which is this period of time right now where the employers are not hiring new people and the employees are not daring to find new opportunities for work. So everyone is just holding still. And so if someone's on the job market, you feel this great freeze. So those that are seeking work are feeling it. Employers, staffing agencies, those are involved in forecasting. Everyone's just holding steady. Artificial intelligence, so many other things are influencing that hold, but they're starting to call this period the great freeze. We'll see if that sticks or not. So adding to this, okay, so again, everything seems steady, turnover's fine, engagement's fine, but what are we doing on the employer side? So we are challenging our employees in several different ways. We're pushing our employees. So as we downsize in positions, we're asking them to do more. We'll talk about downsizing in a minute. Our organizations have had to change dramatically since COVID. Many businesses have completely upended their business model, and we're asking our employees to do it differently and do it more. Now we're bringing in artificial intelligence and saying either get on board or get off board, but we're changing the way we do work in a really dramatic pace. We are we're still balancing between this remote work, hybrid, on-site, and those things are weighing on employees' minds and people have preferences. They have very strong preferences since the pandemic, and we're not sure. Again, they're trying to figure out where they fit in that equation. Customers, we buy differently post-pandemic. We shop differently. I mean, we all expect same day delivery. Isn't that funny? Like here we sit wanting same day delivery from Amazon for whatever. And I'll shop and I'll change brands. I'll do whatever. I just want it today. I don't want to drive 5 minutes to the Walmart. I want to just drop it on my doorstep. So our expectations have changed, which is putting so much pressure on employers. Those businesses are having to push their employees in different ways they never have before to try to meet these increased customer expectations. And the old way of doing work is not the way that we do work today. And so employees are holding management accountable for broken promises. This is not what you hired me to do. This is different than the expectation. Okay. So again, I call it kind of this great disconnect that's brewing. So let me add to this. So we're adding all these pressures on employees. We are in the US approaching 1 million layoffs this year. It seems like we've had so many layoffs. That's been the news. It makes it really, everyone is doing layoffs. That's going to be one of the biggest year. It'll be the biggest year since COVID. COVID, there was 2 million. Okay, that first year of COVID. We're approaching 1 million. So we lay off in America, we lay off 1.6 million people every month. And we add to that, the job cuts in America increased 5.9%. So job cuts, elimination of jobs, 5 point, almost 6% over 2024. And there are 21% of companies out there today anticipating additional layoffs of employees. How does that make an employee feel? Right? So we talk about engagement's high, the turnover is relatively flat. They're a little bit captive if you think about it. The marketplace is volatile. It's upside down. Layoffs are making headlines all across the country. We're in this great freeze, and so yeah, your employees are staying put. Um, there's a decrease in job openings, so the companies are cutting jobs, and reportedly there's these job openings have been cut. So in March 22, there were 12 million job openings at a point. 12 million in 2022. In August of this year, there were just 7.2 million job openings. Plus, Unemployment is up to 4.4%. Uh, Again, up from 3.9 same period last year. And so unemployment's up, job openings are down, layoffs are increasing. So what a dismal story, right? And so the whole reason I go through all of that garbage is I'm trying to take a little bit of the celebration away from, yes, we're very stable. Yes, we're comfortable. We're not losing people where, engagement seems fine, maybe even high. Again, engagement can be driven by a dismal marketplace. People are grateful to have their jobs. So try to take a little bit of the HR credit away from that and just say, hey, recognize that it is a volatile situation for your employees. We're making things worse. We as in corporate America are making things worse. And so we need to be aware of that, or else we'll take our eye off the ball on what we might be needing to do for our employees. So what might be out there with evidence that our employees are disconnected as well? So the employers seem to care less and less about that employee connection. We'll just do another layoff. We'll just do another cut. It used to be very rare that the employers would take such a drastic spreadsheet driven approach. It's becoming way too easy for employers to do that today. But think about the employee side of the question. Have we heard of quiet quitting before? Yes, I mean that's one of those words where I'm going to go through the motion. I'm going to get paid, but don't expect anything beyond that. I'm going to do the bare minimum. The employee side of the equation, they call it quiet thriving, meaning, you know what? I'm going to balance everything I love in life and I'm going to give the employer as little as possible. I'm going to thrive. So quiet thriving. There's revenge quitting, which is, you wait and you just get very upset about something and you just quit, walk out. It's becoming increasingly common to have resignations with no notice. Why didn't she show up today? She just, I quit. See you later. And so people aren't worried about reference checks or things like that. They just walk out. We've heard of minimal Mondays or minimalist Mondays. I'm going to ease myself into the work week. More and more employees are picking up side hustles, having something brewing on the side. And there's an emerging trend called career cushioning, meaning I'm going to keep my resume out there to keep my options open because I don't trust what my employer is going to be able to do for me. Kind of lost. So basically, I'm going to always be interviewing. I'm going to always keep my options open because I don't want to be so stuck with one employer that if they, just decide that we're going to cut this position, I need to have options at all times. And so again, the employers and employees are both creating this rift, this disconnect. And it's not unlike other periods, but I think it's been amplified with the market conditions today. And again, it's a little too easy to take our eye off the ball and think that things are fine, things are calm, when in fact they're not necessarily that way. So let's get nerdy about voluntary turnover real quick. When we lose people, voluntary or involuntary are two general ways we can classify it. Voluntary means I chose to leave. Involuntary would be they didn't choose to leave, we chose to push them out. So if you've given someone written warnings, you fire them. Involuntary, a layoff. Involuntary. They didn't have any choice in the matter. So voluntary is when your employee elects to leave the organization on their own. Okay, so 60% of employee turnover across the US is voluntary, and it averages about 13% per year, voluntary turnover. So that means average turnover across an organization is about 22%, 13% of which is voluntary. I'm only going to talk about voluntary turnover for the rest of this because that's what we're trying to influence. If you lose a good employee, that's a hard thing. That's a very negative thing for the organization. You don't need to keep everybody. But if you lose an MVP, someone that's incredibly good, that can disrupt the business. And so we're going to be talking about what can we do to keep top performers, good performers, so that you don't have to worry about that voluntary turnover. So let's talk about the reasons. So when an employer does an exit interview, they're recording why did somebody leave? Compensation, 74% said that was the biggest reason. I got a better job offer. So I left when I got a better job offer. Some said career development and advancement might have been missing. Workplace flexibility is an emerging thing. I took an all remote job, something like that. Unsustainable work expectations is growing as well. And then the whole manager influence. Again, we don't tend to leave our employer, we tend to leave our manager because that leader dictates our work experience. So we're not going to get into that this particular meeting, but the manager has a 70% influence on an employee's experience, according to Gallup. This again, they do all the engagement research. But I want to focus on compensation being the number one reason employees are leaving. We all might change jobs when we get a better job offer, right? We're not going to change jobs when we get a worse job offer. So it's very easy for an employer to look at that number one reason. I've seen it, 60 to 80% of my voluntary resignations at my companies are compensation. I've left, I got a better job offer. Does that mean the employer has a compensation problem? Are we paying below market? Do we need to do a complete overview of our compensations, our grades, our salaries, our how we pay people? Not necessarily. Okay, so I'm not saying that's not the case, but sometimes I'll have managers come to me and say, we've got a compensation problem. Everyone that's leaving is leaving when they got a better job offer. And I say, yeah, we're all going to leave when we get a better job offer. We're not going to leave when we get a worse job offer. Okay, that's not actionable. If we're waiting until someone gets a better job offer to take action, it's too late. Don't do counter offers. Again, I, I had a policy with my HR teams over the years that I said we do not do counter offers. That was the standard. Now, did we? Rarely. But I wanted to start with the we don't do them because every statistic about counter offers is a bad one. So 52% of employees who accepted a counter offer left within 6 months anyway. 80% of them departed within a year. And other sources are worse than that. So basically, you're putting a little band-aid on something with a counteroffer, but you're also teaching your employees that if you want to get a really good raise, go get a job offer. You can actually create a counteroffer culture. But what you're trying to do is it's like you've got this big gaping wound, this turnover is going on. You put a little band-aid on it, it's going to last for a little while, but you're still going to lose the employee anyway. That's not actionable. And you may not need to look at all of your compensation data as a result. So let's talk about what we might be able to do for turnover that's actionable. So I've got a theory, and I don't know that it has any trademarks or anything. I call it the bad day theory. Okay. Why did we lose that employee? Sure, they left when they got a better job offer, but that whole process began when they had a bad day. Something went wrong somewhere along the line and thought, maybe this is not my last job of my career. Maybe I ought to keep the doors open and consider exploring. We have a bad experience, and that opens the door to talk with recruiters, polish the resume, but it didn't start with the job offer. That's too far down the road. What's actionable for us as managers and professionals are managing the bad days out of the organization. If we can identify when an employee gets upset, when an employee has a bad day, what is frustrating to our key people? Let's fix those things so that we can minimize the number of bad days and retain our best people. Okay. So I'm going to talk, that's the high level theory is yes, you will lose people when they get better job offers. You can't react to that too much because it doesn't tell the story. What tells the story is what's going on before that in the organization. So we all tend to look at the end of the equation, and most of our HR systems will say, "Hey, you're losing people because they're getting better job offers." But let's talk about what starts the process because it's very actionable. So, how do you learn what's creating the bad day for the employees? You listen to them. So think about the avenues you've got at your employers to listen to employees and understand what's really going on. So, do you have an engagement survey that you do? If so, are you reading the comments and looking at the scores to understand what is it that frustrates our employees? What is it that I need to understand? What are the things that the obstacles that I can remove in my position that will make things better? What are the actionable changes that can be made? Some of them at little or no cost. But you've got to see the data, got to ask for the data, you need to review it. And when you do that, let the employees know that you've done it for them. So if read that, they wish that they had, I don't know, purified water available in the building and you add it to the building. Make sure you let them know we did this because you asked for it. Just to do it, you miss an opportunity to say, we've listened to you, we care about your feedback. So you need to have a mechanism where employees feel very open to provide the feedback. I always recommend using a third party for engagement surveys. I've always been against using Google Forms or your internal HR system. If you can use a third party, I feel like employees can be they can disclose whatever they feel like. Employees are always fearful that management's going to figure out who said what. And so they'll hold back just a little bit out of fear that there's going to be retaliation for them saying what's really on their minds. You need to create a forum, whether that's through a third party or an effective tool where employees know that they are protected, that they can say exactly what's on their mind. And then we as employers, managers, professionals need to look at the data and find opportunities to remove the bad days. There will be dozens of opportunities in those survey feedbacks, not necessarily the scores, but in the open-ended comments, it's a gold mine of information of this kind of stuff. So I make it a point to read every single comment. The richest ones are sometimes the longest ones are also the most negative. People tend to write a lot more words if they're upset, but if you can get past the rage, there's usually a couple of nuggets in there that are actionable items that might remove a bad day. Okay. And then have a valid open door policy. Are you approachable? Can people say, hey, can you give me a few minutes? Do you have a minute to talk? And can you be truly present in that forum? Less agenda driven. I had a leader one time stop me in the hallway and say, hey, Rod, how are you? And I said, good, how are you? Okay, think about that exchange, right? We do that every day. Then I started to like kind of walk away. So no, hold on. How are you really? And it put me on my heels just a little bit because I didn't expect that. But he just wanted to know. He was aware that I had a little bit of an issue that I was working through, and he just wanted to make sure I was doing okay. So he was sincerely interested, but he paused and he had a very personal conversation with me. And I learned a lot from that exchange in that, you know, his door was open and he really wanted to know. And again, I was all about business and I was in a hurry and I did the typical, hey, how you doing? Good. How are you? And I was done, but he didn't let it be done. He asked me questions about, that experience. He asked me questions about, it just went on, and was really good for the interactions we had from that point forward. Have a lot of respect for the individual. But again, are you approachable? Can your people come to you? Can they share anything with you? Not that you're going to commiserate with them, right? But are you the person they go to share what's really on their mind? Be that for them. And then I'll introduce a topic. Again, some of you might do this, but stay interviews or retention interviews. I love this approach. And I'm a merit-minded leader, meaning I like to favor the top performers. Okay. I think every employee is important. Don't get me wrong. I want to express and create value for every single employee, but I focus on the key players when it comes to something like a stay interview. So when we do our exit interviews, so somebody resigns, we do our exit interviews. We ask, why did you choose to leave? What could have kept you here? Any feedback you want to give? That's when we're learning they got a better job offer, right? That's not actionable. We're going to record that in the 60 to 70% of our exit reasons that show, hey, voluntary turnover, better job offer. Bring in the top 20% of your employees every year. Let them know. Say, hey, we've identified you as one of the top performers in the company. Want to have a little interview with you to find out about your experience at this company. What do you most enjoy about working here? What has been your most frustrating moment in the last 45 days? What keeps you here? What, if anything, could we change to make this a better place for you? What are your career goals and ambitions? What can I do as a manager to help you be successful? Okay, so but again, meet with all your employees if you've got a small team, but meet with your top performers and have a stay interview. When you ask a question like, what has been the most discouraging thing for you here in the last 45 days? You start to get to that bad day principle. You start to identify a policy, a hurdle, an obstacle, a system, a function, an individual. You start to end up identify something that is actionable that you can remove or fix or improve for that employee to make their experience better. So in this way, we're not allowing that great performer to get further and further frustrated, to continue to look for work. Again, 51% of employees are looking for work right now. One in three is engaged. We're all on the fence. But as you pay attention to the things that matter to your people, especially your best people, we take away some of those exit reasons and create a better workplace for them. We should be doing that anyway, but it's through this active feedback mechanism that we can actually do this for our people. And this is really the only way to proactively reduce turnover. I mean, forget installing ping pong tables, adding another microwave, adding free granola bars to the kitchen. Forget whatever, forget all of those. Those are great. Those are wonderful things. Those don't necessarily retain people. When you have a one-on-one connection with your employees, you understand their needs, you understand their obstacles, and you fix those things, you keep that one person. And if you start at the top with your most valuable people and go down the organization, you keep the people you need to keep. Some turnover is okay. You don't want to keep everyone all year long, but keep your best people. To do that, you need to know them. You need to remove the bad days from the equation. So let me reinforce that concept. Again, there's a lot of Gallup statistics in here. They looked at voluntary exits and they interviewed thousands of people that left their organization voluntarily and said, what kind of conversations did your employer have with you before you left? About half of them said, oh, they didn't say anything to me. So that makes sense, right? Half the people that left voluntarily, their employers didn't have any conversations about anything with them. They had no idea they were even looking for opportunities. Only 17% reported anything related to staying with the organization as part of a conversation had within the last 90 days of their employment. So, keeping the active, open dialogue going is a big part of the process of keeping your people. Okay. To summarize, again, I intended to do this in about 30 minutes, and we're going to nail that target. So, our employees, half of the employees are looking for work. Only 30% of them are actively engaged employees. Many are going through the motions. We're not going to react to the offers that people get when they leave employment because we will all change jobs when we get a better offer. Let's just kind of maybe we're not thinking about it, but that happens, right? That's economics. We leave when we get a better offer. That's not actionable. We need to be looking about what triggers the door opening for those opportunities, what starts those bad days, and that's the thing that's actionable. So, what can you do? Look at the feedback you're getting from your employees. If you're not getting any, get more. Make sure the engagement surveys your organization is doing that they're adequate, that they're complete, and you're getting the feedback you need. Make sure that you are approachable and that you have the conversations with your employees that are the how are you really doing types of conversations that are open, honest, transparent, where you offer to help them succeed. And then give the retention interviews or the stay interviews a shot. Talk with your people, find out about their experience day to day, open the door so you know when they have a frustrating moment, they know they can come to you. You're going to fix it, improve it, make it better. Because if we can remove the bad days, we can remove. That's the best way to influence getting, I guess, our voluntary turnover becoming too high, especially for the MVPs across our organization. Okay, so with that, that's it for this particular webinar. We've got a reasonable group here. Does anyone have any questions on any of those topics? Okay, well, if not, thanks so much for attending. We'll make this recording available. Everyone have an amazing day. We'll see you.